Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going into the topic test again with a second video in this series about each different section of the test. If you haven't seen my video about the topic test in general, or if you haven't seen my first video about the listening section, I recommend you can watch those first to get an idea about the other parts of the test. But if you have already seen them, then let's get into this reading section. So as you can see, there are 50 questions in the reading section, and you have 70 minutes to answer them. So you have more time than the listening test, but actually the reading test requires better time management than the listening test. Because in the listening test, you're just following the audio recording. The audio recording never stops, so as long as you can keep up with the audio file, you're on track. But in the reading test, there's no audio file. It's up to you to stay on top of time and not fall behind. So that's why I say that the reading test, you actually need better time management than the listening test, even though you have a bit more time. So let's get into the different types of questions. Because the topic 2 test ranges from level 3 to level 6, there's a big variety of difficulty in the questions. So the questions start off fairly easy and they get pretty difficult towards the end. I'd also say in general that the reading test has more difficult vocabulary than the listening test. Because just in general, since you don't have to pass what you're hearing, you can just see it on the page. It gives the test makers a chance to test you more on your vocabulary than your comprehension, your listening comprehension skills. So let's have a look at the different types of questions. The first ones are pretty straightforward, just choosing what goes in the brackets. So this could be, in this case, it's all the same verb, 보다, to see, but it can be 보지만, 보거나, 보려고, 보더니. But yeah, pretty straightforward as to which one goes in. This one, similar, has the same verb, 담다, to be similar, but with different endings, and in this case, different collocations. So, 닮아간다, 닮았나 보다, 닮기도 한다, 닮은 적이 없다. And this style of question, where you're just choosing what goes in the brackets, also comes out later. So you'll see lots of questions of this sort, where you just choose what goes in the brackets. And yeah, you just have to know your endings pretty well to get this one. In this case, it's asking you to choose which one is most similar to the underlined part. So it's kind of asking you a similar thing to this one, but it's giving you more information. So in this case, 정부는 일자리를 늘리고자 새로운 정책을 수립했다. So it's asking you, okay, if we take this, just this 늘리고자, which one of these four is most similar to that? And same thing here with 고향인 셈이다. Some of these are, I would say, less common grammatical constructions, like this 셈이다. I mean, it's a thing that people use, but it's not nearly as common as some of the other things you'll see. So they do start testing you on some slightly less common grammar and vocab. And yeah, this question, a similar question will also come up later, where you have to choose the similar meaning. Okay, next one. 다음을 무엇에 대한 글인지 고르십시오. So these are all sort of ads or banners. You have to just choose what it's about. So basically it's testing on your vocab again. 더위를 싹 자연 바람을 선물합니다. So okay, it's about getting rid of the heat. It's about a natural wind. So again, you basically just look at the keywords in the question and choose which one makes the most sense. Similar to all the other questions, if you're not sure, if you have two ones that it could be and you don't know which one fits the vocabulary better, just choose one that makes the most sense. And it'll probably be right. They're not trying to trick you. They're almost always just trying to test your vocabulary. So there's a similar question to that here later in the test, but instead of using banners or ads, it's using news headlines. And I find this question a lot harder than the choosing what the ad is about. Because if you look at Korean headlines, a lot of the time it's absent of the normal grammar that you would see in a sentence. It's basically a string of words with sometimes some grammar that helps you kind of know what each word is doing in the sentence. So if we look at the first one, 관광버스 추락, 안전벨트로 승객 전원 목숨 건져. So you can see the only thing which you could really call a grammatical point is this 로, 안전벨트로, so like using or with a seatbelt. So you just have to know from sort of the context and from the order of the words, what this is about. But yeah, you can see there's no endings for the verbs. It's just a string of words, basically. So yeah, this one can be quite difficult. And again, the most important thing for this question is just vocabulary. That's what they're trying to test you on, is your vocabulary. Okay, so let's go back to where we were before. Questions 9 to 12 are asking you to choose which one best matches the graph or the text. And this is probably the most common type of question where you get some sort of prompt, whether it's a picture or a graph or a text or whatever. You have to see what's in it and choose which answer matches it the best. It's the most basic type of question, but it's not always easy. So in this one, you just have to be careful. It's just asking you about the details of a certain event, about a competition. So you have to just be sort of careful about which one you choose. 이번에 처음으로 열린다. You can see, okay, is it the first time? No, it's the third time. So just like in a listening test, when you see an answer that's wrong, you can just cross it off and not worry about it. So all of these are pretty similar to that, and most of the questions that come after this will also be asking you to do the same thing. Just choose which answer matches the text. Okay, and the last type of question that you'll see is where you have to either put the sentences in a certain order or put a single sentence into the right position in a text. And these can be tricky as well. And I find you can actually spend a lot of time on this, getting a bit stuck. But I'll give you some tips that can help you. So first is, before you look at the actual sentences, look at the possibilities for the answers. So in this case, it's not actually that useful because the first one of each answer is different. Kanadara. But if we look at question 14, you'll see the first sentence in the sequence can only be na or ra. So 1 and 2, the first sentence is na. 3 and 4, the first sentence is la. So I would then go and read these two first. So we'll read na. 앞차 주인은 큰 사고가 아니니 괜찮다며 그냥 가라고 했다. Okay, I mean, it could be first, but it seems a bit weird. I think this one will probably be more likely. 앞은 딸을 병원으로 급하게 데려가다가 앞차에 부딪혀서 사고를 냈다. Okay, so in the second sentence, or in the fourth sentence, it's about crashing into someone in front of you. And in this second sentence here, it's about the person in the car in front of you saying it's okay. So it's pretty obvious that la is first, and we can eliminate answers 1 and answer 2. So we know it's going to be either 3 or 4. And also, we can see that after la, it's always ka. La, ka. La, ka. So the only thing we need to know is whether na or da comes first. So let's read maybe, or since we've already read na, we can kind of tell that. Let's read ka, just so we know what came next in the story. So after crashing into the car, we have 차에서 내려 앞차의 주인에게 사과하고 사정을 설명했다. So, okay, that makes sense. He got out and explained what happened, explained the situation to the person in front. And then the one we read before about the person in front saying it's okay. Or it could have been this one. 친절한 배려 덕분에 딸은 무사히 병원에 도착해 치료를 받았다. Okay, so basically you can see from this that they got to the hospital, and it makes sense that this would be last. So we know that it's la, ka, and then na, da. The tricky thing is kind of keeping track, so that's why I would recommend physically crossing out the incorrect answers, so it's easy to keep track, so you don't have to reread and waste time doing that. But this is how I would go about solving this kind of question. And you can see here we have a similar style of question, where this sentence in bogi has to be put into the correct position in the text. So for this type, so you can see here from question 39 to 41, we have a pretty similar style of question where you have a sentence at the bottom, bogi, and this sentence has to be put into the correct position in the text. So for this kind of question, I would start reading it from the top, and then as soon as you get to the first possible answer, then I will read this one. So you get some context, you sort of know what it's about, and then you can start to think about where this one goes. For this one, to be honest, there's no real trick to it. There's no real hints I can give you. You basically just have to read it and figure out which one makes most logical sense. Although I will say, just like the previous one, if an answer doesn't make sense, just cross it out. That's going to be the best way to manage your time, so you don't have to keep going back and rereading the question again. Okay, but that's basically all the different types of questions in the text. There'll be one variation of that. So either describing what's in the text, choosing what goes into the brackets, or putting the sentences in the right order. Yeah, they're all going to be basically like that. Okay, so let's try and solve question 44 and 45 together. So I'm going to read through the text and I'm going to highlight the words that I think are important to understanding the text. So I'll try and do this quickly so we can move on. Okay, so I've read through the text and I've highlighted some of the more important words to understand here. So I want to also give you the example of if you don't understand what some of the words mean. So for example, let's say you don't know what jesa means. Jesa is some kind of ritual, some kind of ancestral thing. I don't know if there's actually a word in English, but let's say you don't know what this means. You can still see that the text is about jesa. It's about jesa junbi. So even if you don't know exactly what it is, you can still sort of understand that the text is about this. And that's the important thing in answering these questions, is knowing which words are important, which words are central to the text, and how the other words are affecting that central word. So identifying these important words is a skill in and of itself. Anyway, we have Yukyo Yebop, so Confucian like etiquette or kind of manners, I guess. So we have 조상을 공경하는 and 자손들의 화목. These were two things that Confucian scholars were saying are important. So respecting the ancestors and the peace or the harmony of the posterity, whatever you want to call it, the offspring, the descendants. So this is what they're saying is important. And then we had, your mind and your emotion are important. It's saying 제사의 본질. Yeah, I should do 제사의. The sort of the original meaning or the nature of 제사 is saying you have to understand this. 이해하여. And 정상이 중요하다. This is sort of the key point of the text, is that the most important thing when doing this ritual is having the right emotion or the right mind. So we should solve question 45 first, because that will fill in this blank before we can try and answer this one. I mean, it doesn't really matter, to be honest, but I'd say just to be safe, it's good to answer these specific questions first before you answer the one about the full text. So 45 is which one goes in the brackets. So I'm going to read the sentence that it matches with, and we'll see which one matches better. So 하지만 현재 우리가 지키고 있는 예법은 something 잘못된 예법이 전해져 온 것이다. So what kind of 예법? Is it 상차림이 간소화된 잘못된 예법? Is it 후손들의 바람이 반영된 잘못된 예법? Is it 육교의 본뜻을 살리지 못한 잘못된 예법? Or is it 현실에 맞게 축소되지 않는 잘못된 예법? Okay, so there's probably a lot of words here which are, I'd say, are pretty difficult in general to understand. But we think about what is the mistake that they're making in these rituals. What is the thing that's being criticized? Well, the thing that's being criticized is that they don't have the right mind, the right emotion, and they're focusing more on, having a lot of food. So for example, in this sentence, 좋은 음식을 많이 준비하는 것보다 그 음식을 준비하는 마음과 정성. So they're saying it's more important to have the right mind and emotion than to prepare a lot of good food. And then they're saying that it's not reflecting the nature or the true quality of jesa. So if we have a look at these, even though these all sort of come up, I would eliminate 1 and 2 first off. 상차림이 간소화된 후손들의 바람이 반영된. Yeah, it's not mostly about these. I think these two are better ones. So let's try and choose between them. 육교의 본뜻을 살리지 못한. Okay, number 3 sounds pretty good. So it's an incorrect etiquette which is unable to keep alive the original meaning of Confucianism. Or 현실에 맞게 축소되지 않는 잘못된 예법. Okay, so it's like matching to the present day, I guess you could say. Yeah, I think number 3 makes more sense to me, because again, if we look at the text, it's about the importance of these Confucian things, these Confucian traditions. So is not matching is not keeping alive the original meaning of Confucianism. So we'll say number 3 for this one. Anyway, well, I'll just cross out number 4. We'll say number 3. Now let's do question 44. So here we have a question about the overall meaning of the text. So 위글의 주제로 알맞은 것을 고르십시오. Choose which one matches the subject of the text. So 조상을 모시는 제사상 차림은 점차 간소화되고 있다. Okay. 육교 문화는 후손들에 의해 유동적으로 변화되고 있다. Okay. Yeah, that could also be right. 명절에 제사를 드리는 전통은 예법에 맞게 유지되고 있다. Okay, well, we can already cross that out. That one doesn't make any sense. Because we know 예법에 맞게 되고 있다. We know it's not matching the traditions. That's what the whole thing is about. We can cross that off. 육교 예법에서 중요한 것은 정성을 다해 예를 갖추는 것이다. Okay, I think number 4 makes the most sense just from reading without diving further into it. It's saying in Confucian etiquette, the important thing is emotion, giving all your emotion, and bringing manners, I guess you could say. But again, just because of the words that I've highlighted when I read it, I don't even really have to go back and read the whole thing again. I can see from the important words here that this is probably the right answer. Just to make sure, let's just read the first 2 again. Yeah, I mean, if you're not sure about whether these are right, I would say always go with the one that matches the overall theme the best. So let's say, I'm not really sure about number 1. Yeah, I'm not like 차림은 점차 간소화되고 있다. Like, it could be right, but I think number 4 is just, it's so close to what the actual text was about that I think number 4 has to be the right answer. But yeah, we'll cross out number 1 because I don't think that one really matches. For number 2, 육교 문화는 후손들에 의해 유동적으로 변화되고 있다. Again, it's kind of similar to what it was talking about. It's saying that the Confucian culture is becoming more fluid, or it's going through a change because of the descendants. I mean, that's kind of true, but the key point, the really important point of the text was about what is important in doing this ritual. What is the sort of the Confucian etiquette? So number 2, although it's pretty close, I think number 4 just matches too well for it to be wrong. So yeah, always go with the one that makes the most sense, because there should never be any argument as to which one is the right answer. There should always be one clear answer that has to be right. So yeah, that's how I would go about answering one of these more difficult questions. I've given you some tips for the other types of questions, some of the maybe slightly easier ones, or the ones that might not take you as long. For overall tips for the reading section, I would say in general, again, time management is the most important thing. So if you get to a certain question and it's just too hard, there are too many words you don't know, I would say just skip it. There's no point wasting your time reading it over and over again and trying to figure out the meaning of certain words. If it's going to take you 5 minutes to get through it, it's probably too long. So it's useful to be able to identify which questions are going to be too hard for you and just skip them. Maybe if you have time later, you can go back to them, but just skip them. And again, when you're doing the answer sheet, when you're filling out your multiple choice answers, make sure you do skip it on the answer sheet as well, because it's easy to lose track and to start writing the wrong answers for the wrong questions. So just make sure you're careful about that. But anyway, I hope this was useful for you guys. If you have any questions about the reading section or about topic in general, leave them in the